Hey boys and girls, we're gonna try to make you a little bit wiser today. We're gonna do our tutorial on the track that we released today, the club mix of our track Long Way Home. We're pretty excited about this one because it's something different than we've done so far. This is something new for us, but we're happy because when we play it, it's fire. So that's a big compliment for us, and now we hope we can tell you something about it.
So welcome to this tutorial, and we received some questions. We always check our Instagram DMs and check our forum for questions and for information that you want to know about productions. First of all, we made some remixes, and actually this is also a remix on our extended mix of Long Way Home. So we'd like to make some versions of tracks. For instance, this one is the Long Way Home club mix, but we also made a remix on Kygo, Happy Now. We made a remix on Avicii, SOS, and we try to create versions that fit in our set so we can play them live.
Yeah.
Those versions are on YouTube already, so check that out. It's a Kygo Happy Now remix and Avicii SOS remix. And this is the new version for Long Way Home, and it's going to be also on our YouTube channel. So.
Oh, absolutely, yes. So we received a lot of questions on the remixes that we've put online.
Yeah.
And a big question was, guys, what's the approach on a remix? How do you start?
Yeah.
What do you use from the original? And as Steve already said, this track is super different from the original, so this is actually a remix, although we also made the original, but that doesn't really matter. It's usually just about using the right parts for a remix, and usually you want to use the parts that are most outstanding in a track and the most recognizable. And for this track in particular, what's really outstanding is the vocal. It's super typical, really atmospheric, very characteristic. So that's a thing where we would definitely use also with regard to other remixes. And also melodies are always something you use. What we've done with the remixes that you can find on our YouTube channel is that we use the melodies a lot in the track. For this one, we had a little bit of a different approach, and we used them in especially
the breaks,
a little bit in the drop, but we did completely different drops. Let's skip to the track a little bit so you can see what we're talking about here.
End of the night, I put my jacket on, calling a cab, waiting outside. You nearly passed me, but then you asked if I had a light. I told a joke and we shared a smoke or five. I said I ain't got a plan, but we could hang out till the morning. 'Cause I don't wanna leave you now. Let's take the long way home, just a little more time alone. I don't ever wanna let you go. Let's take the long way home. Let's take a long way home. I'm not ready to be alone. I don't ever wanna let you go. Let's take the long way home.
And now we start building. So this is kind of the general layout of the track. Of course, there's a second break, we'll get to that later on. But when you've heard the original, if you haven't heard it yet, check it out real quick. It's already out there on Spotify, for example, or Tidal, or Apple Music, or whatever. Also YouTube. So check it out, and you'll know what we mean. But we start with the vocal because it's outstanding in the track. That's the main thing that's recognizable. But we wanted to keep it a little bit more dark. The original is very hands up, hands in the air, uplifting. And for this one, we wanted to do something different. So we choose not to get in those feel-good warm chords straight away, but just to use one note.
End of the night. I put my
I'll use a
jacket
reserve
on
for
the
that too.
cab, waiting outside.
That's all that's happening actually. It's making small variation.
Hang out till the morning.
And here it starts moving a little bit, going back to the original chords.
Let's take the long way home. Just a little more.
So we wait a little bit for that to happen.
I guess it's more the club vibe. Like if you start, if we play it live, then it gets more attention when you just start building from just the one note that we play. Like F sharp, that's a nice note to just build on something. So we started with the one note, and then we build up to that euphoric vibe that we also have in the extended version or in the radio version.
Yeah.
So first, that's a nice part to start with, and that when the second part comes, the melody comes in. We don't use the same instruments that we use in the radio edit or in the extended version. We use this one. This is actually the only one that we used from the radio edit. The rest is different. Gives it also a bit more like a clubby vibe. That's what you hear in this more kind of build up.
Let's take a long way home. I'm not ready to be alone. I don't ever wanna let you go.
And of course, a really important part of this part of the track is the vocals, including the doubles that we used. So yeah, this is the
way home. Just a little more time alone. I don't.
And then when you play it with doubles,
let's take a long way home. Just a little more time alone.
That's exactly what that's the sing-along vibe that makes it like really happy and outstanding.
Yeah, absolutely. I just want to go back for 1 second to like the beginning. You might wonder why we would choose this note for that. I mean, it could have been like any note, so why did we go for this one? This is actually the root note. In Dutch, it would be the grondtoon. But it's a root note, and like a track is always in one key in particular, and if you use that key, the root note as a bass, you can play whatever you want in the same key on top of it, and it will sound like solid. So that's why if you want to build some tension, you don't want to throw in all the chords already, it's usually a good decision to use the root note, because that will give you some space to build up to something. Also, a reason why we picked this note in particular is that if you play a remix during your set, and just imagine being on stage, you see thousands of people in front of you, the element of surprise is always like a really nice thing. And if people know your song, or like if you're remixing, I don't know, somebody else, so if people know the original track, it's cool to play your own edit, but just make it that different that people will know, wow, what's going on? We haven't heard this yet. So that's also why we choose not to throw in everything from the start. And we do that a lot. And sometimes you can hear it in our sound design that it's so different from the original. And sometimes it's just chords, melodies, whatever. Yeah,
it's just really important to just pick the parts of a remix package that the stems that you receive from for instance, like what we did with the Kygo remix. We received some stems, and we just pick up the nice parts where we can work with and where we can build something entirely new of. Like for instance, the guitar is pretty nice. The part of the whole vocal is just crazy. So we can use that and build our own version around that. And so we just pick the nice parts of some stems that you receive. Because if you're gonna put in all the stems or all the instruments or samples that you receive from a remix package, then it's not like, you have just less creativity to work with.
That's right. There's only so much you can put in one track, so always try to leave some space for your own creativity.
So about this one, back to this track. Now so as Lucas already said, we did something entirely different with the drop, because we noticed that, for instance, a track like Where Have You Gone has get that kind of same vibe, and we want to try something new, because it's a new track, and the club version has to sound totally different than the extended version. This is actually more like a rough, how do you say it, a rough kind of EDM track. I think that's the best part to. That's the best way to announce this one. But it has different things in the drop. Like, for instance, we used several bass layers. A lot actually.
A lot of bass layers in this one.
I think
bass loop,
bass
1, 2, 3.
So can you just play the drop?
Yeah.
Let's take the long way home.
So this is one of the. So this is a sound that we made in Serum. This is a sample, I think, yes. Another sample, giving it a lot of energy. You can hear a lot of hits, and that's what gives it, the groovy vibe. If you throw them all together, it sounds like this. Of course, we're having a sub also. I think the funny part with this track is, and you see that a lot also with other producers, is that some of the stuff that you throw in the track is not something you hear directly, but it's something that you feel.
Yeah.
Especially on the dance floor, when you get like over 100 decibels to your body and to your ears.
Well, the thing is,
you will notice.
And the part of the, like, for instance, layer the blue channel that we used, bass loop, which actually you don't hear it that loud in the track, but still it gives you that groovy feeling that it's not. When we turn it off, it sounds a little bit empty, but still, even if you play it like solo, then you'll notice that it has a lot of notes.
I mean,
it has a groove.
We actually use it in here to give like the bass more impact, right?
Impact, true.
So that's the thing, because in the sub we filter away a lot of high end always, so a little bit of the attack disappears. If you look at a synthesizer, like the attack part, the push that it has, it just gets lost. So if you want to get that back, you can just add a sample or another synth that has a little bit more like higher mid end, where a lot of attack is present. You can just throw it together and you will have your attack back.
So this is the low end of the part, the low end part of the whole track. Like, we built something on top of the low end, and that, I think, 3 layers, they're really important, and especially that one, yeah. This gives that. Well, it's not directly in the low end of the track, but a little bit on top of the sub.
But still, the notes are played pretty lowly, you know. Yeah. So it's still bass. Actually, it's still bass, but we got rid of a lot of the lower end. All layering. But what you see here is that in this loop, some sounds do overlap, and in that case, you gotta EQ everything, like the right way.
Yeah.
But we also make use of all the space that we have. So,
for instance,
at one moment, the one sound is playing and the other isn't, and the other way around. So we fill it up.
So this is the part where you don't want this in the track, because you already have like the low end part of these 3, and then you have this one. We use it as a layer for warmth for this one. So you'll get rid of this. Just a little bit of this.
So when we say getting rid of, doesn't necessarily mean you just filter it out completely.
No.
It's just, just imagine if you start layering sounds, frequencies are plussing. So you don't want them to plus into like too much. So you just diminish them a little bit or a lot. Just see what sounds right. There are not really rules. And you'll see that you get more control and it will sound more nicely.
For instance, if we play this without EQ, it will sound very messy. Oh, this one's like there's too much going on right now, so this is just try to make space for the instruments that you use so it will fit in your track. And if you like what Lucas already said, frequencies are plussing and it won't give you much headroom to just build a track and make it as loud as possible, because we still have to deal with the loudness war, and it won't happen if you just won't make space for your instruments. So these two give that rough vibe of the low end section of the track. Then we have some. I think this is a sample that we used, right? Yeah, this is a sample.
Yes.
Something interesting is happening right here because we automated a filter part. So we used a Moog filter. It's from Universal Audio. It's actually a really good one. It sounds really solid and really clean. And it makes it just a little bit more special. If you play it without, it won't give you that vibe.
Just note here that when we play it solo, it will not show what it does completely in the track, because we have a lot of reverb on it because we thought it sounded nice, but we turned the track off and on. You can see it where the mouse is pointing right now, where the red dot is. Can you play it once more without solo? You'll see that it. You see like the button where it says 78 is lighting up yellow when it's on. And when we want to get rid of the verb completely, we just turn it off.
Yeah.
So you can all automate it.
That about the low part of the track. Like the high end has also be a little bit more rhythmical for us in this track, because of the low end is like really pumpy and rough. We have this. You won't hear it that loud in the track, but it gives that high, that vibe. Like
it's all grooving. And it just keeps on going.
It's just a sample with a lot of verb and some processing. This is without anything. And this is with processing. Same for this one. It's just a really simple snare kind of. It's about layering. So it sounds fresh in the track. If you turn it off, it sounds like this. And if you turn it on, it sounds like this. Is that clean spark and groove that you need in this track?
Also, what you can see right here in the EQ is that we use a lot of EQing, not just to get rid of everything, but also to really shape sound. Sometimes just imagine what a sample could sound like if you EQ it in the right way.
Yeah.
It's big differences. Like turn it off, way less present, and you want to make it stand out in the track. At the high end, it will have more energy. It will sound way more bright. You can also use it for that, obviously.
Yeah.
Another sound that's really important in the track is this track.
Yeah,
that is called
sick one.
Bass right now. What we did with it is actually the same thing as we did with channel 78. We got a lot of reverb on it, but because we wanted the track to sound, more empty, and we wanted to make some space, just automate the reverb. That's what we did right here. You can see right here when the bar is up, it means the channel is on. When it's down, the channel is off. So it result in reverb right here and no reverb right here. And here the verb gets turned on again. So you create space that way. That's just something we thought of, which worked out really nicely. It's an FM modulation bass, that's what we called it, and that's basically what it's doing. It's actually just two saw waves, detune a little bit, so it became a reasing sound. If you never heard of it, well, it's just as it is. Two oscillators, one you detune to the one side, to the upside, the other you detune to the downside, up to minus or plus 25. Will still sound nicely. Then we linked the second oscillator to the first one in the FM section right here. Just select FM, and that's what's giving it like a really growling sound. It's actually what's going on. It's that kind of stuff. You can glide a little bit with it, like we did in here. We use a legato, as I can see right here.
Let's take a long way home.
There's just a lot of leads that we used. Some we've used in previous tracks, and we just used in a different way because it's not really like playing a melody that we usually have. But it's all atmospheres, and it's it's going up, so that's usually also increasing energy. Then here we did some synth rolls. That's what we called it. It's this kind of stuff. You can always make that stuff also. You can do it in any synth. I think we did it in... we did it in Serum. Or recall we did it in Serum. You can you can draw it all yourself. You can draw the LFO that you want to use. You just link it to volume or other effects. And that way, just make sure the speed is nice. By the way... this one, it's not this LFO, it's this one. So you just make sure the rate is high enough, so it will make the rolling sound. If you turn it down, this will happen. You just make it really fast. And we set it to 1/32. Linked it to the filter, linked it to the levels of both oscillators. You can link it to anything. Distortion will help also a lot. It will give it a big attack, and we use it here to build up to the leads. Like that. Then we got a lot of questions about stereo spreading. A lot with regard to layering. And I think the club sounds are pretty interesting to talk about.
Yeah,
right?
Like the club leads that we used. First, when we started this project, we started with only this one. But we used a layer on this, and that's actually what Lucas made because this sounded too clean for us. So. And it's actually just a Spire synth. It's really, it's just actually one preset with a lot of processing on it. sounds like this when we turn it all off. And then we wanted to layer it because it has to sound a little bit more edgy. So we added this one. And if you listen to this sound, you will, we also still have it like, what the fuck is this sound? But together it sounds.
It's just sound a little bit warmer. It's got more body. Way broader frequency range because you're adding a lot of low end. And
it's more. It sounds better also in the mix. Important is that we like compressed it on a double way on a. Oh wait, that's the wrong one. We compressed it on a group, so it sounds a little bit the same as you compress it. We used this one, and actually we talked about this in the previous tutorial. We use this one a lot. It's the T-Rex soft clipper. It sounds amazing.
It will put a lot of stuff right in the face. We use a lot of leads, but I mean you can even do it on vocals if you use it the right way.
Yeah. Some side chaining, EQing. We get rid of the really like the harsh frequencies. Sounds like this actually without. Not really nice.
Really noisy actually.
Noisy, yeah. So and a big trick because we get rid of this part also, and we still wanna give that feeling that it's still there. We use the max bass, and max bass is like a trick that we actually learned from Jesse from Pepper Rash. Like we use this and put the ratio on 2 so it won't compress like that hard. It's just like compressing in a low end of your track. So from 64 to 200, and we put the frequency on 140. Just a little bit to make it sound a little bit like for that part of the frequency range, it pops out a little bit more. So it sounds without. It sounds like this. And adding. So it compresses, but it still makes it just a little bit more punchy in the low end, which is really nice for synth leads. We also use this one on vocals a lot to give that warm feeling back. Then this one, also a really nice one.
A brilliant one. If you want to get rid of a lot of harshness, stuff in the high end that you don't want.
Really nice one. Some verbs, transient designer to get that just a little bit of a tag back and sustain just a little bit low.
That's the thing, with the placement of sounds. If you give something attack, it will be more in the face. If you give it less attack, it will sound a little bit more distant.
Yeah, and as for stereo spreading. Well, depends. For us, it's important to just like. Of course, your sub has to be mono because it's important part of the track. And if you listen to it on PA, your sub and like the higher parts of your track can be stereo, but your sub has to be mono. We like to just give everything just a place. For instance, like the chords in our track normally are really more kind of mono. And the leads that we use in the track are always more like stereo. So for this one, you can tell what we did with the whiteness.
Yeah, it's pretty clear in here. You can of course you can use a lot of plugins on top of your synthesizer plugin to make a sound more wide or more narrow, mono. Different ways to do it, and Spire has a special button for this. Is right here. It determines the wideness of the track. You can see that all oscillators that are turned on are really high in wideness. And I think what the button does, because that's usually how you create the perception of wideness, is that there is a difference created in timing between left and right.
Yeah.
And left and right is literally the left speaker and the right speaker. So if you make the difference bigger, the track will sound wider.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Difference can be too big and your sound will start to phase. You don't want that. You just want it to be wide and not phasing. But just try it out and you'll hear it. Also, another way to do it is by adding multiple voices to an oscillator, like you can see actually in here with all oscillators. The first one has 8 voices, second one 9 voices, third one also, and so on. But if you detune them more, all these voices will be detuned just slightly from each other or a lot from each other.
And differences. That will also,
always differences between left and right will create a perception of wideness. So with this synth, you can see all buttons here, wideness is to the max, and there's also a little bit of detuning going on with multiple voices, which will also make it sound wide. So yeah, that's what happened to the synths with regard to wideness.
Well, if we want something just a little bit more wider or less wider, then we always use this one. Always, not always, but we use this one a lot. It's the S1 stereo imager from Waves. It's so easy in use, so we just, like for instance this one, mono. This is like the normal, like the start point of your plugin. You can just put it up, and it just gets a little bit more to the sides. But for instance, if we use it on, you can use it on everything. Let me check where we also used it. Sub is already mono, but no. For instance, on this one. Just a little bit. And this one. To just pop it out just a little bit more. And sometimes we use like this one. This is a really nice plugin to. Actually, it's a free tool. You can download it for free. It's a really nice one. It makes it also really easy in use with. Pop it out and you'll see the waveform here. But be careful, don't get it in phase. You'll see a phase meter here. Now this is too heavy. You also see it in the waveform. So this is a nice plugin to use. So there are different ones. So check it out. You'll find your own one, which you prefer. So these two we prefer, but still there's a lot more. Universal Audio has some amazing ones.
Yeah, and of course, always look in your synthesizer. You can do a lot before the processing change starts, and usually you will have a lot of control when you use your synth, and it also is very your sound is very dependent on it.
Yeah. I received a couple of questions about how we make a flute. The typical signature Lucas and Steve kind of sound. We use it in a lot of tracks. Not particularly this one, but still, like the flute sound is just a sound that.
It's nice. I mean,
it's nice. It gives that energy feeling on top of a synth that sometimes you just need that.
And it's also organic.
Yeah, it's organic also.
That's important. If we want to make something sound very organic, you can also hear Kaigo doing it all the time.
Yeah.
Organic sounds that come out of a synthesizer are usually something that sounds a little bit like a flute. This one, however, is designed the way you would kind of design a flute. We were in doubt whether this was really a flute because we called it serum bell right here instead of serum flute, but I'll show you. It's fluty, it's a little bit plucky, but we just did that because that fitted the track at that point nicely.
Yeah.
Right. So how did we do it? This is a triangle waveform that's used a lot for flutes, a lot for organs. If you want to create an organ, make sure. Right now it's mono because it's we want it to be a powerful flute. If you want to use an organ, turn off mono. Make sure you can play multiple notes at once. Add a little bit of vibrato, which is what we did here also. We linked LFO1 to the fine tune button, got it at this rate, and that's what's causing the vibrato in here. I'll show you. If we turn it off, we wanted to make it sing a little bit because that just fitted nicely with the rest of the instruments. So that's what we did. Also, a lot of flute sounds are vibrating a little bit. So now we also wanted to add a little bit of attack, and this time, I mean, a lot of people just use a very short decay, very short attack, and then link it to the pitch of a track, which is what we did also here in the chorus button. But we also, and that's more, well, I wouldn't say secret because it's still happening a lot, but less people know that you can also create attack when you use multiple voices on an oscillator and then link also the same kind of envelope to the D tune. So what happens is that as soon as the note hits, your D tune level will be around here, and then it will just use the slope and get back to this point, and that will also create attack. So that's what we did for this one. If you also flute sounds, we're getting a lot of questions about it. Are often also made with a little bit of white noise. We choose not to do it this time, but if you want to use a little bit of a hissing sound, more kind of the pan flute vibe that you can use, and of course you can link all kinds of envelopes to it to make it a little bit more I don't know, fluty like this. All stuff like that, but I'll just turn this one back for the moment. So that's the flute sound. Of course, you can use sine waves, are used a lot for flutes, but I think every sound that will sound nicely and easy to the ear usually has like the easy, the really soft wave shapes, which are triangle and sinus. Then just add some delay, add some reverb that will make it big, will also make it sound very nicely. Yep. We use some distortion on this one, compress it a little bit, and that's it for this sound. And in the mix it sounds like this. And when we get back to the topic of remixing something, because we used a drop that's so different from the original, we thought it would be cool, to just get back elements of the original track right in the drop at some point, and that's what we did right here. So the beat drops, it has already dropped, and then it will come back to the chorus just for a small moment. Mess around with the vocal a little bit, just to get back that recognizable feeling from the original. And for the rest, don't want to skip the second drop. We just got in the a little bit more energy, a little bit more SFX, got in more for percussion sooner.
Maybe it's fun to tell about something about the second break. Yeah. Because we, as Lucas already said, we wanted to create something different, but still don't lose the feeling of that euphoric song that we created at first. So we made a moment in the second break, and that gives you that euphoric feeling. It's after the chorus, actually, the first part of the chorus. These are actually the sounds that we also use in the radio version. mix differently.
A little bit more energy. We put some leads a little bit louder. Also here a vibrating lead like the flute. This also vibrating, singing a little, getting that Swedish vibe to it. This is all about hands up. When you play the track live, everybody's gonna have the feeling that like this is a big moment. This sounds big. So that's why you put the leads a little bit louder, get rid of the vocal for a little moment, and just let the synths do their work.
Important part of this part of the track is the pianos that we use. It's the same one that we used in Inception. Actually, this next is one we mixed it differently though. This is the lower part of the piano section. Then we have and the higher part, and then we have some atmospheres over here, makes it all sounds euphoric. And of course the leads. That's it.
All right. Yeah, we already talked a lot about the first break. Now we were getting back to the second break, and before we forget, the second break starts very different from the first one. The first one we told you we wanted to start a little bit dark. We wanted to surprise people, but as soon as you've surprised the crowd with your remix, it can also be cool, to surprise them in the second break again by a different approach than you used in the first break. So. The second break is a little bit closer to the original. It sounds like this.
Took your hand. You said I moved a little
you can hear the chords are playing instead of just the ground note.
Cut you real bad, but he don't deserve you. You're gonna learn. I'd never do that. I said I ain't got a plan, but we could hang out till the morning.
And that's when it starts building up. First part of the chorus. We use some drums underneath it to make it a little bit more exciting. Building up, coming out of the filter to the big leads we just discussed. And often what we do in a second drop is that we build up towards it a little bit longer. It's not always necessary. In this case we didn't do it a lot longer, but that's a choice you can make. Sometimes you want to take a little bit more time before the beat drops because you want to maybe talk to your audience a little bit, or to build up the energy. But in this case, we went just straight from the happy big moment to the build-up. A couple of bars and then drop. Then I think it's also interesting because this track has a super nice vocal. To talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, well, when we mix a vocal, it's like different. Every vocal is different, and every mic is different. So. That changes your approach on how to mix a vocal. So don't just put a chain on it. You can just use the compressors or the equalizers that you really like, but like just listen very carefully to the vocal, because it's a really important part of your track. Actually, for this track, it's especially in the radio edit, it's the whole track, and it gives you the emotion of the track. So be careful with just putting a chain on it. We use for this vocal, we can just show you.
Waiting outside, you nearly passed me, but then you asked.
Oh, this is without.
Waiting outside, you nearly passed me, but then you asked if I had a line. I told a joke, and we shared a smoke or 5.
This is without.
Waiting outside, you nearly passed me, but then you asked if I had a line.
And this sounds with the chain that we used.
Waiting outside, you nearly passed me, but then you asked if I had a line.
So not every singer likes this, but autotune, yeah, just to tighten up the tune a little bit. A delay that we used is this one, and we use it on a lot of vocals, but also on synths and instruments, samples. It's a really nice one. It's from Waves H delay. You can just tweak this one until you like it. We didn't use it really loud. It's just a little bit.
That's the thing. If you compare the vocal without the processing, and you play it with processing right after, exactly how we just did it, it will sound super wet. A lot of reverb, a lot of delay. But if you...
I put my jacket on, calling the cab, waiting outside.
If you compare to other tracks, you will hear that this isn't really that much of wetness. It will, just blend in with the track. And I think we chose the point here where it sounds a little bit wet in the track, but not super wet. You can just check out other tracks. Sometimes vocals can be really wet, and it just depends on the rest of the production, the kind of song it is. Sometimes you can make it way more dry than this, and sometimes way more wet. It just depends on what you want and what the track needs.
Yeah. Then a important part of the vocal depends on the de-essing and compressing that you use. For this one, we used the R channel, and actually we don't use it that much, but still, this vocal is so edgy that it can be. This compressor and equalizer can be really turn on that edginess and gives you that.
I put my jacket on, calling the cab, waiting outside. You nearly passed me, but then you asked if I had a line. I told a joke, and we shared a smoke or 5.
Makes it a little bit punchy,
right? A little bit more punchy and
brightens it up a lot.
So it sounds nice, and we just give it a little bit of high end and some around 2K. Then we get back to the surgical part of the vocal. It's difficult to like, for instance, that we compressed it first, and then you will always hear parts that you just don't want to hear in your vocal, like the muddiness.
I put my jacket on, calling the cab, waiting outside. You nearly passed me, but then
part around this part, if you don't mix it or just equalize it nicely, it won't stand out in your mix, and the whole vocal will get fucked up and sounds not nice. So it's important to just remove the parts that gives you that boo feeling.
I put my jacket on, calling the cab, waiting outside. You nearly passed me, but then you asked if
just don't sound nice. Then we don't do anything with this one. It's just on.
Not sure why.
The trick that I said already was the max bass, just a little bit to boost up that.
I put my jacket on, calling the cab, waiting outside.
Because we removed it.
You nearly passed me, but then you
on the equalizer, and then we put it back on the max bass.
Yeah. And the difference here, big difference, is that this might look a lot, but those are really small notches that you can just here you can see better this way.
Yeah.
It's just, this is really specific, so it's just getting rid of like 6 dots, and for the rest, so this is what happens. It's 6 dots getting pushed down, and as a next result with max bass, you put it up. So the outliers are gone now, so then you can just lift it a little bit already. Again.
Sounds like this.
I put my jacket on, calling the cab, waiting outside.
important. And then the reverb, just a reverb from Native Instruments, really nice one, sounds really clean.
In a cab waiting outside, you nearly passed me, but then you asked if I had a light.
A limiter, boosted just a little bit. Actually, just a preset. It's really easy in use. A really nice limiter, by the way. This one to remove a little bit of harshness of the vocal, and it sounds like this.
I put my jacket on, caught in a cab waiting outside. You nearly passed me, but then you asked if I had a light. I told a joke and we shared a smoke or five.
It's really nice, and as I already said, it's important to just listen very carefully to the vocal when it's dry without processing, and then just start processing. Not just put on something that's just listen very carefully and make it sound really good, because that's the main part of your track. And these are the doubles, also very important for this track. That
I don't wanna leave you now. Let's take the long way home. Just a little more time alone.
So we created backings, then we bounced it, made a audio file from it, and we put it under this, under the lead vocal.
I don't wanna leave you now. Let's take the long way home. Just a little.
There you go. This was the tutorial that we did on the club version of Long Way Home. It's out now. We hope you learned something. We skipped to it very quickly, but we hope you learned something.
The next one will probably be when we release a next track, which is gonna be a lot. We're gonna release a lot of music that's coming right at you. Also, if you have any questions about this tutorial, about tutorials in the past, or if you have any questions for upcoming tutorials, please post them under this video or on our producer platform. That said, also it's that time of the year again that it's the DJ Mag Top 100 voting has started. It's fair competition, so please vote for whoever you like, who you think deserves it. Of course, we would highly appreciate it if you would vote for us. Feel free, and if you do so, let us know on social media, so we can give you a big high five for that. Thanks for being with us on this episode on our producer platform, and we hope you'll be with us next time also. Cheers.
Ciao!